So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC 307 Pereira versus Rountree, and it's going to continue the trend of quite a few very good UFC events. We just had the big event in France in front of a crowd. A lot of big performances come out of that. We got this event here, once again in front of a crowd, and then we do go back to the Apex, but we do return to the Apex for a couple of good events. You will notice that I have made a couple of changes to the channel. The old BetUS advertisement that was there for, I believe someone said like 13 pay-per-views went past, or maybe it was more. It might have been like 20 something pay-per-views went by with that Pereira versus Adesanya BetUS advertisement. I will be honest, I just completely forgot about it. I couldn't find another good BetUS advertisement that was recent to put on there, so that is just what's there now. It'll probably be there until I forget about it, to be honest again. But you guys can keep reminding me in the comments just about how I am having a bad hair day now in every single one of my videos. I promise you guys, I shampooed and conditioned my hair last night, and it still looks like a mess. Maybe that's my problem. I do shower at night before I go to bed. Maybe I need to shower in the morning. Maybe that's the secret, but I guess just let me know in the comments. Of course, aside from that, Dana White's Contender Series is on. At the time of me uploading this video, it will be the night before the Dana White's Contender Series event, so you've still got heaps of time to check that out and see how Contender Series is hopefully going to play out if my predictions do go correctly for that event. And of course, I do write articles as well for the Contender Series every single week, and once the Contender Series stops, I will be getting back into what I was doing before, covering Cage Warriors, LFA, and everything else, you name it. And I know a lot of people are requesting an article for the UFC event, and I will try to get that started this week as well on the We Want Picks website, which is $10 per month for their premium, and that's where you get my articles for that. Now, if you do sign up using my code ARTEM, you help my channel, and you get a 3-day free trial. That was a long intro, 2 minutes. Let's get into it. Tim Means fighting against Court McGhee. I mean, it is seemingly a double retirement fight. I would be very surprised if Court McGhee doesn't retire, but I would be... I mean, I feel like if Tim Means continued fighting, I wouldn't be that shocked, but I do think that both of these guys are going to retire after this fight, and I actually think that the winner of the fight is going to be Tim Means. I think that although he is a bit older, I think that he is still a bit faster than Court McGhee, and I do think that there is a good chance that this fight does primarily take place on the feet. Although both guys will look to get takedowns down there, I think that this is going to end up being a striking matchup. I think that Tim Means' takedown defense, although not great, should be good enough to keep Court McGhee at bay at this point, and I think that his striking and the movement that he still does maintain despite being nearly 41 years old should also be enough to kind of have Court McGhee chasing after him, trying to use his boxing to close the distance to get the takedown. So I like Tim Means in this matchup. I don't feel good about it. I do know that Court McGhee trains at Elevation, and that probably is going to be a big narrative going into this card in general. But I'm going to go with Tim Means. I think that he's still a bit faster in the matchup. I think that out of the two, he's probably the one that still has a little bit left, even though he's been losing more regularly. Court McGhee, you know, he has been KO'd for the second and third time in his career. Somewhat recently to Jeremiah Wells, it was a bad one, and then Matt Brown, but Matt Brown, he's a legend of the sport. I'm going to go with Means. I'm going with Means by decision. Not that confident in the fight, though. I think it's very hard to be. And now we have OSP fighting against Ryan Spann. This fight's been rebooked, I believe, at least once. It might have been rebooked twice now at this point, only once. But I feel like it's just one of those matchups which Ryan Spann should be able to win. Ovince Preux has been past his prime for as long as I've been on YouTube, really. I mean, I've been on YouTube since 2021, over 3 years now. That is kind of crazy to think about. And I feel like OSP was past his prime then when I was talking about him originally. And now I feel like although he's got a couple of wins, he just doesn't have that much left. And he does fight against Ryan Spann, who I think that actually is a very talented fighter, but he just doesn't fight to his potential at all. He's got really bad fight IQ. His cardio at times can fail on him, and then he can also strike when he shouldn't, and then grapple when he shouldn't. He just kind of has a good, well-rounded skill set where he can strike and grapple, and just like doesn't put it together whatsoever. A very difficult fighter to explain, but I feel like if you know what I mean, you kind of know what I mean. I think in this matchup though, Ryan Spann, every time you do see him fight, you think, wow, This guy is a massive dude for 205 pounds, and he does have a lot of size with a lot of speed, and of course a lot of power. I do think that he's going to land on OSP, who is really slowing down at this point. I don't think Ovince Preux is going to look to wrestle Ryan Spann, and even if he does, I don't think he's going to get the takedown. I do think Ryan Spann does just go out there and knock him out in the first round. However, being at elevation, Ryan Spann, he could gas if OSP can survive, but I just don't think so, man. I think it is kind of just as simple as Ryan Spann should be able to finish OSP in the first round, and I think that he does. So give me Spann to win this matchup by knockout and early on. Now we have Carla Esparza fighting against Tecia Pennington. Now, I also think that this is going to be a retirement fight for Carla Esparza. I do think that Tecia Pennington will continue to fight after this one here, win or lose. But the thing with Carla Esparza is she's retiring on the early prelims of a pay-per-view. And although Carla Esparza has never really been my favorite fighter, a lot of people haven't been the biggest fan of her in general. Not because of who she is, just because her fighting style has been quite boring. It's a bit disrespectful, really, to put her on the early prelims for her retirement fight. She is the Ultimate Fighter champion. She won the belt at 115 pounds for the first time. Won it again recently in probably the worst UFC fight of all time, but she still got the belt back. And now you're having her retire on the early prelims. I do think it is a bit sad. Now, and I think she loses as well on the early prelims of this card. I do think that Tecia Pennington, although she has lost 2 fights recently in similar stylistic matchups, I guess you could say, to Carla Esparza, in Tabitha Ricci, in the fight that she lost before she took the time away when she went pregnant, was against Mackenzie Dern, and she should have won that Mackenzie Dern fight. I know the Ricci fight was very close. A lot of people are trying to make arguments either way in that one too, but what Tecia Pennington does bring to the table is like a lot of speed and pretty good technical striking to the weight class, and I do actually strongly believe still to this day that if they had a women's atomweight division, Tecia Pennington would have been the champion. In this fight, it just comes down to, do you think Carla Esparza can get the takedowns? And I'm just going to say no. She is 37 years old now, nearly 37 years old, and I think that Tecia Pennington, although she's pretty old and has had her times away from the sport and hasn't got a win since what, she beat like Nina Nunes? She didn't beat Nina Nunes, ignore what I just said. But yeah, I just think that Tecia Pennington can defeat Carla Esparza. We'll ignore that comment and we'll move on. I think Pennington does get it done. I think she can land more volume against Carla Esparza, and I do think that she can defend the takedowns as well. Alexander Hernandez takes on Austin Hubbard, and this is just another weird one because I think that Alexander Hernandez is better than Austin Hubbard. And I think that Alexander Hernandez also spent way too much time at 145 pounds since he decided to move down, which was just kind of an odd decision in the first place. He was massive for 145. He wasn't making the weight that safely, and he was gassing out all the time. It kind of surprised me in the first place that he decided to do it, but I think coming back up to 155 is the right move. At 155 pounds, Alexander Hernandez does have more cardio, which is going to be important in this matchup, of course, at elevation, taking on a guy that trains at elevation fight team in Austin Hubbard. And I think that he also just hits harder at 155. Hernandez is just a tough kind of prospect to think about. He's not even a prospect. He's 32 at this point. But before, the way that I kind of remember Alexander Hernandez is the way that he come up in the UFC very quickly. He beat Beneil Dariush in 42 seconds by KO, beat OAM, who is a PFL millionaire now, and then fought against Donald Cerrone. And honestly, I know a lot of people trash him because he lost to Donald Cerrone. Some of this trash talk in the build-up against Cerrone was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty savage. And honestly, if he won, he really could have become a little bit of a star. But I guess we kind of found out he just wasn't that great in the first place. But he's a decent striker. He does have a lot of power. He does have pretty good takedown defense as well. At 145 pounds, he was draining himself. And although he did lose to Bill Algeo and Damon Jackson, they're not really the worst losses to have at 145. They're not great, but they're not bad. I think he's taken down a step down in competition against Austin Hubbard here. Austin Hubbard just kind of hasn't impressed me all that much. Like, I do know that he beat Mikhail Figlak in his last fight, which did really surprise me, but I don't think he's going to have the speed of Alexander Hernandez. I don't think he's going to have the finishing ability of Alexander Hernandez. I think he's going to have to go out there and try and take down Hernandez, but Hernandez is a fast guy. He does have good movement. I think he is going to land more strikes from range and just do more damage in general. Of course, the cardio is going to come into question. He's moving up a weight class now after being at 145 for quite a while. The cardio at 145 did not look good at all, and now you're putting him in there in an elevation fight against someone who trains at Elevation Fight Team. Yes, a lot could go wrong here, but I'm still going to pick Alexander Hernandez, even though I don't feel that good about it. Now we can move up Ihor Potieria versus Cesar Almeida. I guess the people's choice of the lock of the card is Cesar Almeida. What could go wrong? I guess it was Joanna and Brito last week. I would be surprised if Cesar Almeida lost this fight. I really would be. It's a striker versus striker matchup, and I think, just to put it simply, Cesar Almeida is the better striker. And that's just kind of what it comes down to for me. Cesar Almeida, if you guys don't know, he is a former professional kickboxer. He actually kickboxed against Alex Pereira in a trilogy. In one of those fights, he actually ended up winning. And then he did fight for Glory Kickboxing as well, which is probably a kickboxing promotion you should be pretty familiar with now that Alex Pereira is the champion. And we're getting quite a few other Glory Kickboxers coming over to the UFC. Some of them are having a lot more success than others. Junior Tougher, I am looking at you, but he has had a pretty successful kickboxing career, and I think that it's come through quite well so far in the UFC. The split decision close defeat to Roman Kopylov, where Kopylov surprisingly was able to find some success with control, and then against Dylan Budka showed decent takedown defense and just knocked him out quite well. Quite impressive. And he showed good grappling against Fernando. I think now, for really one of the first times, aside from the Kopylov matchup on paper, he's getting a fully striker matchup. I would be shocked if Ihor Potieria was to go up there and shot takedowns against Cesar Almeida. Ihor Potieria is a wild man. He's been in the UFC for a lot longer than I expected him to be. I genuinely believed he was just going to be an 0-3 guy and then get released, but he just somehow manages to stick around and he gets the wins when he needs to. If you watch his fights, he's absolutely insane. His Contender Series matchup, which wasn't the one against Shogun, it was... Man, he's been active. Sorry, but against Lucas Sadolski, you watch this matchup, he just running forward like an absolute maniac. It's kind of honestly throwing strikes like this at moments, and it's a great fight. It's a fun fight watching him go out there like a wild man. He's just a high volume, pressure forward striker. But as of recently, he's obviously started making some changes to his fight camp, changes to his style. He's become a lot more low volume, a lot more controlled, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like the move. I don't think he's technical enough to pull it off. I don't think he's good enough on the feet to pull it off. I think that this is a good matchup for Cesar Almeida to go out there and just be the better striker. One thing that Cesar Almeida does so well is he mixes up to the body very well with his hands, especially. He will close the distance, and he does have, for a primary kickboxer, very quick hands, and he will go downstairs and then upstairs as well in combination. I think that even though he's now nearly 37 years old, I think he's still got a lot going on for him, and I think that he can defeat Ihor Potieria by knockout and pretty early on into the matchup, so I'm going to go with Almeida, and it seems like a lot of other people have a lot of confidence in him. Now we can move up to Marina Rodriguez fighting against Iasmin Lucindo. Iasmin Lucindo was a fighter that I have actually kind of been looking to fade for a little bit because I haven't been all that impressed by what I've seen so far. I will be honest with you guys. She's a striker grappler. She can strike and she can grapple. But I would say a lot of people kind of think of her as a striker. And I don't think that her striking is all that. She looks very sloppy on the feet, and her performance that a lot of people gas up very highly is against Iasmin Yaregui, which is a loss that has aged very poorly now. And in that matchup, Iasmin Lucindo, she's just running forward with her chin in the air, and she's throwing wide hooks and leaving herself very exposed to counters where the better boxer in Yaregui was able to land those counters and was able to box her up for the most part. But she did make it a brawl. She did land some pretty big shots, which, to, I guess, everyone's surprise at this point, managed to not knock out Iasmin Yaregui. Since then, though, she's gone on a good win streak. She's not even 23 years old yet now, taking on Marina Rodriguez, who just a couple of years ago was knocking on the door of a title shot. Marina Rodriguez is going to be the much better striker in this matchup. She is a lot more technical. She throws a lot more straight shots down the middle. She throws a lot of 1-2s, a lot of strikes behind the jab, a lot of strikes behind the leg kick, and she does have a very nice straight cross, which she does throw pretty regularly. She's going to actually have a slight reach disadvantage in this matchup against Lucindo, but I think with the way that they both kind of go into striking, with Lucindo looking for those close range hooks and overhands, Rodriguez is going to be able to kind of throw the shots, I think, and get out of the way a lot easier than Lucindo. Lucindo has shown some grappling recently, which I think is probably her best way to win the matchup against Marina Rodriguez. Rodriguez just lost to Jessica Andrade. She was really pressuring her backwards, kind of like Lucindo was going to in this matchup. She just beat up Michelle. Verona Jandiroba dominated her by taking her down over and over again with a lot of control time. Not the best fight to watch. I wouldn't recommend it. And I guess Amanda Lemos did knock her out. But the way that Rodriguez loses this fight, in my opinion, is with Lucindo out-grappling her. And although on paper, I think her takedown defense is only 65%, I think that it's still going to be good enough. And I think that she can keep the fight on the feet against Lucindo, be the more technical striker, throw strikes from range, and win the matchup in that way. I'm going to pick Rodriguez as the underdog to win by decision. Now we move up to a couple of fights now, actually, that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with my predictions on. And it is, of course, Stephen Thompson fighting against Joaquin Buckley. And I am on the Stephen Thompson side. Now, it seems like a lot of people are on the Joaquin Buckley side, and they're on the Joaquin Buckley side because they think that he's going to go out there and take Stephen Thompson down over and over and over again. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's going to happen, and there's a very good chance that that just ages very poorly because Stephen Thompson is nearly 42 years old, but he still is somehow showing great movement. He's still very light on his feet. He's got that karate style, which has worked for absolutely nobody in the UFC, aside from Stephen Thompson and I guess Weston Wilson, who just beat Jeka Saragi. It's like a plus 500 underdog, but we ignore that. Stephen Thompson, he's a very good striker, obviously. One of the more technical strikers in MMA history. I guess one of the better strikers to come over to MMA of all time. Had an undefeated kickboxing record, if I'm not mistaken. 57-0, I believe is the number there, which is quite amazing. And he has managed to bring that striking very well into the game. Very fast kicks to all levels. He can kick the head, body, and leg with what seems to be the same level of speed and quickness. And what he can also do is get out of range very, very quickly. He's got very good movement. He does fight kind of moving backwards a lot because he can be pretty open to being pressured. And of course, he does not want to be taken down, which does make it easier for someone that's going to want to wrestle against him. Well, easier to pressure against him. Joaquin Buckley is an interesting fighter, and I am seeing a lot of people thinking that he's going to go into this matchup wrestling, and I don't disagree. Against Nursultan Ruzaboyev, I believe he took down Nursultan Ruzaboyev like 4 times, I believe is the number. I could be wrong on that one, but he did take him down a few times, and on the feet outlanded him 3-1. I picked Ruzaboyev to win that matchup, by the way, so I could go 0-2 in a row on Joaquin Buckley fights, but in that matchup, it was a very impressive win over Ruzaboyev. Ruzaboyev just kind of gassed out, and Buckley really started to take over. And before that, he's gotten a couple of good wins as well since moving down to 170 pounds. Knocked out Luque, didn't need any takedowns in that matchup. Did beat up Alex Moreno, who, despite what a lot of people say, I still think is actually a pretty good win because Moreno's always going to be a tough guy. And he knocked out the corpse of Andre Fialho. I do think in this matchup, I do think that Stephen Thompson is going to be able to just kind of keep at range, keep his movement away from Joaquin Buckley, and land his straight shots. Now, I do worry about all of the kicks that he could potentially be throwing because, of course, you can catch kicks and then you can turn those kicks into takedown entries, and you can catch kicks and then push your opponent up against the cage. That's kind of what happens most of the time. But I do think that Stephen Thompson can just move in and out in this matchup. I think he's still going to be a sniper on the feet. He does still have that laser of a right hand. He doesn't really have that one-punch KO power, which I think a lot of people worry about. But in the past, those straight shots have given Joaquin Buckley trouble on the feet, and that's where I think that the fight is going to take place. I do think that Thompson is going to have to defend multiple takedowns in this matchup, but I don't think he's going to have to be defending takedown attempts like every 30 seconds like he may have had to deal with against someone like Gilbert Burns, even though Gilbert Burns was able to find a lot of success in the control. I'm picking Thompson. Pretty low confidence pick, but he is an underdog. and I do think he does have a pretty good chance to win. Now we have a flip. We have I thought Kevin Holland was the underdog going into this matchup. He's my pick, by the way. Kevin Holland is the favorite on all of the sports books. Well, anyway, Roman Dolidze fights against Kevin Holland, and Roman Dolidze probably is a very good underdog for a lot of people. But I am going to pick Kevin Holland in this matchup, even though you can't trust him at all. I've said it before and I will say it again. We don't know if Kevin Holland is just taking his career seriously anymore. He's going into interviews talking about how he doesn't want to be a champion. He's talking about how he just wants to make money. He doesn't even know what weight class he's fighting at anymore because he was at 170 pounds for a bit. And I was personally, even though he did lose to JDM and Michael Page, I still thought that he had a future at 170 pounds. And I didn't mind it at all. And now he's at 185. He submits Mikhail Olechechuk after getting hurt. Yeah, and now he's at 185. So I guess that was a choice that was made. And I don't hate it. I did prefer him at 170, but it is what it is. He fights now against Roman Dolidze, which is another fighter which I've been wrong on in the past, but I also don't think I'm that wrong either. I don't think Roman Dolidze is all that. I really don't. I think he's a fantastic grappler, but I think his striking is his biggest weakness, and I say that, and he was able to piece up Anthony Smith on the feet, who, yes, I know is Anthony Smith, but Anthony Smith was winning a couple of fights recently before that. Dolidze, he's just not that, like, he's ranked in 2 divisions now, in the top 10, I think. Yeah, he's just one of the fighters of all time, I'll be honest. Roman Dolidze, fantastic grappler. We all know this. I believe he was a European champion in BJJ, but he has lacked the wrestling to get fighters down to the ground in some situations. And Kevin Holland, although a lot of people think that he does have terrible takedown defense, that is something that he has worked on in his game, and I do think that he is going to be able to keep the fight on the feet against Dolidze. And when the fight is on the feet, I do think that Kevin Holland is going to be the significantly better striker. Roman Dolidze, he just kind of runs forward and throws big hooks. That's kind of it. I believe in his matchup against Marvin Vettori, he threw 14 left hooks in a row. Just left hook, left hook, left hook. And Marvin Vettori, being the striking wizard that he is, couldn't figure out a counter for it in all 15 minutes of the fight. It was quite an incredible watch of just middleweight MMA, to be honest with you. But this is middleweight MMA. And Kevin Holland's going to be the faster guy. He's going to be the more technical guy. In middleweight, you do just throw logic out the window, so maybe he's not going to win, but I'm going to pick Kevin Holland, man. I feel like if he's going to win a matchup, it's going to be a fight against someone who he is a significantly better striker than, and I think he is the significantly better striker in this matchup, and I do think he does beat Roman Dolidze, and I do think that he is going to finish Roman Dolidze as well in the second round by knockout. Now we move up to Kayla Harrison fighting against Ketlen Vieira. I think this could be an interesting one with the altitude, the elevation that we are going to see in the fight, because Kayla Harrison does have decent cardio, but I wouldn't say that cardio is one of her strong points, and the way that she does fight does expel a lot of energy. Coming into this fight as a minus 800 favorite, minus 900 favorite on BetOnline, you can look at Ketlen Vieira plus 600 right now. And I feel like at elevation it might not be a bad bet, but I am still very confident in Kayla Harrison because I do think that she does have the skill set to make this fight look easy. Kayla Harrison was in the PFL. She found a lot of success. Judo gold medalist twice over. Judo, she had won a judo bout against Ronda Rousey, who of course was all of the rage. I want to say just like it must have been 8 years ago now. I think it was kind of when Ronda Rousey was really at the top. But Kayla Harrison, nonetheless, very, very good judoka, very, very good wrestler, massive for the weight class. She fought at women's lightweight prior to coming over to the UFC, and cut to the 135-pound weight class, and I thought she looked pretty good against Holly Holm. She must have actually had to have made a lot of changes in her lifestyle and her diet to be able to make that weight class, and she did it against Holm. She found a lot of success. I thought that even then, even though she did dominate Holm and get the takedowns, I even thought that on the feet she didn't look too bad. I know that Holm is the much better striker in the fight, but I thought that Kayla Harrison, she kind of held her own. She didn't look that bad. In this fight against Ketlen Vieira, she's going to need to get the fight down to the ground, and I think she can. Vieira is a very powerful girl. She is a pretty big fighter for the weight class as well, but I do not think that she's going to be able to provide the resistance to the takedowns that she's going to need to in this matchup. I just don't think she can defend the takedowns of Kayla Harrison. I just don't. The thing is though, if she can, and she can defend the takedowns, and she can really work the body of Harrison in the first round, things could get really interesting going into rounds 2 and 3. Because I do think that Harrison, if the fight does leave the first round, is going to be one to keep an eye out for, because as I said, her style, she does go for big takedowns. I guess with judo though, the art of judo is to get the opponent down to the ground without trying to use up too much energy, like you use their momentum against them. You learn about like that kind of thing when you do sweeps, and I guess, well, kickboxing and Muay Thai as well, we just do little trips. But the thing is, though, Harrison, when she gets the fight down to the ground, she's just raining ground and pound down, like, constantly, and she's fighting so hard to keep dominant, top control as well. I could see her slowing down if the fight leaves the first round, but I actually don't think it's going to. I think Kayla Harrison is going to find the finish in the first round against Ketlen Vieira, and I think she's going to get that title shot against the winner of Pennington versus Julianna Pena. I'm going to pick Harrison to win by round 1 finish. It's probably more likely ground and pound than submission, even though you don't really see ground and pound finishes all that much these days. That's just kind of what Kayla Harrison was very much known for in the PFL, and I think that she can make it happen in this fight. Now we move up to the featured fight. My guy, Jose Aldo, fights against Mario Bautista. Aldo, he looked good in his last fight, man. I really had a lot of questions. You know, he had retired. He took time away. He went to boxing, and I guess had a little stint in boxing. Fought against Jeremy Stevens in a pretty fun fight. You know, it was a draw, but yeah, he stepped away from the UFC, boxed a couple of times. It was fun. It was cool. And then he just come back against Jonathan Martinez, and I was kind of a little bit worried about my boy Jose Aldo, because I thought, you know, the time away spent boxing, he might not have really been just kind of working on the all-round MMA game that you do need to have, but he come back against Martinez and he looked good, man. And I think that he can kind of have a similar performance here against Mario Bautista. Now, Mario Bautista is, in my opinion, just a lot more of an aggressive fighter than Jonathan Martinez is. And another thing that Mario Bautista is probably, well, definitely will at least try to implement into the game is takedowns. But the thing about Jose Aldo is that Jose Aldo, for the longest time, has had some of the best takedown defense in the UFC, probably some of the best takedown defense in MMA history. I think you could put that word out there. He has been very well known for being the best anti-wrestler in the promotion for a long time, and I think that in this matchup, he's going to defend the takedowns against Mario Bautista, and I honestly would be quite surprised if Mario Bautista can get Jose Aldo down to the ground and onto his back, because we know how good Aldo's takedown defense truly is. Another thing about Jose Aldo as well that has aged very well in this performance, I actually brought it up in the Merab versus O'Malley fight because I was trying to use it to justify O'Malley being able to beat Merab. Hindsight's 2020, but in the fight against Merab, Jose Aldo defended all of the takedowns, and you could make a serious argument. I'm not arguing for him to win the fight, but I'm saying if he just threw some more strikes in round 2, because I thought he won round 1, but round 2, if he just threw more strikes and landed more volume, because he just wasn't throwing that much volume in that matchup, I think he could have beaten Merab based on the first 2 rounds, but he just kind of didn't. And in round number 2, he just kind of stopped throwing strikes, which was a little bit of a shame, and Merab did win the fight by just disrespecting my GOAT, man, I'll be honest. But the thing is, I think that Jose Aldo on the feet is going to be the better striker against Mario. We just saw Jose Aldo beat Jonathan Martinez in a mostly striking matchup, and in that matchup, Jonathan Martinez, no, he's not a wrestler at all. He's a Muay Thai striker. Did attempt 2 takedowns against Aldo, and Aldo was able to defend them both. And Aldo even got his own takedown against Jonathan Martinez as well, which isn't something that you see all too much out of Aldo these days. He's not really attempting that much takedowns. Do I think he's going to attempt takedowns against Mario Bautista? Definitely not. I think it is just going to be a striking matchup, and simply put, I do think that Jose Aldo is going to just be the more crisp striker in the fight. And boxing probably isn't that bad of a thing for this matchup in particular, because Mario Bautista, we do know him for being a pretty wild guy on the feet. He does come forward, he does throw with a lot of power, man. This guy does have KO knockout power, and he does pressure forward quite a lot. But I think like a guy like Jose Aldo, with the boxing that he has just kind of been doing, he's going to be pretty smart in the pocket, despite being 38 years old now with 40 professional fights behind him. I think he can get by Mario, man. I think he can just kind of get the better of the exchanges. I think he can land the more volume. I think he can make Mario Bautista miss as well. The real question is, like, when is Aldo going to start to slow down? Because he is 38 years old now, and if you guys, well, there's the thing. Jose Aldo, in my opinion, is the best featherweight of all time. Now he's at 135 pounds, which he come down to in 2019. And before that, though, he had an entire career at 145 where he defended the belt. What's this, like 8 times, 7 times? Of course, did lose it to McGregor, but it is what it is. The run since then has been up and down, but it's been really up recently, and I think that he's going to be able to keep it going, man. It's a legend versus a prospect fight again. There's a lot for Aldo to, I guess, well, probably not really a lot for Aldo to lose at this point. He's 38 years old, but for Mario Bautista, a win over Jose Aldo, you know, that's career changing. You know, people will look at him a lot different if he can get past that Jose Aldo matchup, and he did recently beat Ricky Simone, but that was a short notice fight with Damon Blackshear. I don't know. I just think that we're going to see Aldo go out there and win the decision. That's kind of where I am at in this one here. And I know a lot of people are torn on that one. And then we go from the hype. I've seen Jose Aldo return again, despite probably going to be near retirement. Jose Aldo, one of the greatest fighters of all time. The greatest featherweight of all time. A guy that will be in the Hall of Fame, in the MMA Hall of Fame, the UFC Hall of Fame, probably other Hall of Fames. And now we get to see Raquel Pennington win a decision against Julianna Pena by clinch control. Oh, yeah, I think it's just that simple, I'll be honest. Julianna Pena hasn't fought since 2022. In that fight, I know that she did beat Amanda Nunes despite all odds. Amanda Nunes was able to take her down, was able to beat her in her best moments, her best kind of area of skill set is what I'm trying to say. Amanda Nunes dropped her like 5 times, like twice in multiple rounds. I just think that Pennington is going to be able to beat Pena. The thing about Raquel Pennington is that on the feet she actually is pretty good. Like, her striking's not bad. Her boxing's going to be a lot better than Julianna Pena's boxing, which is just her running forward and windmilling. That's literally it. There's multiple highlights of her doing this against Amanda Nunes and just getting slapped. Yeah, I think Pennington's just going to be a little bit more crisp on the feet. And what she does is she's just going to control Julianna Pena up against the cage. Is it going to be fun? No, but yeah, I think Pennington does win. And the thing as well that I do like about Raquel Pennington is I know that she'll fight Kayla Harrison. I feel like if Julianna Pena beats Raquel Pennington, she'll try and look for a rematch, or she'll look for a reason to not fight Harrison or whatever. I know for a fact. I know that this is the same lady that was calling out Nunes for years, by the way, that I'm saying this to. But I know that Pennington will fight Harrison. So I like Pennington to win, not just because of that reason, obviously. I do think that she is going to be stronger than Pena. She's taken on a Pena that hasn't fought for 2 years. I don't think Pena is going to be able to get the takedowns, to get the submission. And I do think that Pennington's pressure, she is the better boxer in this matchup too, which I do like. And I think that she is going to be able to control in the clinch. But I do genuinely believe that the fight is going to be not fun. Just not fun to watch. I'll be honest. But now we can have Alex Pereira fight against Khalil Rountree in the main event. A little bit of a shock to a lot of people. A lot of people don't really like the fight because he's fighting the number 8 ranked guy, this and that. But at the same time, I kind of like it, I'll be honest. Like, it's just going to be fun. Khalil Rountree ain't going to shoot a takedown on Alex Pereira. That's where I think it gets a little bit interesting, because I think if anyone is going to shoot the takedown, I think it's going to be Alex Pereira. We can't forget Alex Pereira was shooting for takedowns against Israel Adesanya in their original fight. Like, well, it must be, like 2 years ago now at this point. And he's been working with Glover. There's no way that he hasn't been working on some sort of offensive wrestling, like, at all, right? But I don't think that the fight is really going to last long enough for it to matter. I am seeing, like, Twitter's underdog of the week, seems to be Khalil Rountree. And the thing about Khalil Rountree is there is a chance, like there always is going to be. Alex Pereira, I will say, you can land shots on him. His striking defense, although good, like it isn't amazing, like it really is. Like this is the thing about Alex Pereira though. He's so good at striking. He probably is the best striker in UFC history. One of 2 Glory Kickboxing Hall of Famers. The first 2-weight division champion in Glory Kickboxing to come over. And the one of 2 Glory Kickboxing Hall of Famers. He just happens to have come to the UFC, and now he is a 2-division champion, right? So he is. I would say he is the best striker in MMA history, in the UFC history. But the thing about Alex Pereira is that a lot of people say, and it is true, like I always kind of think, man, like you can't just really just talk down on him because he is so great. He does still have some weaknesses on the feet. Like he is hittable. He does really rely on just really good head movement. And the thing is as well about his head movement is he isn't like over swinging it. Like if you see Alex Pereira's head movement, it really is like as simple as him just kind of shifting out of the way like a little bit. Like he doesn't really use his footwork all too much to defend the strikes. It kind of is like when he's defending headshots, he just kind of moves like in and out. Like you see even Yusri Belgari do this quite a lot as well, which is another one of Alex Pereira's training partners. And it's effective. It works. It's good. But the thing about Alex Pereira is he has really good counter striking, man. Like he just kind of, you don't really want to close the distance against Alex because you know what's coming. You know, you've got the knees, you've got the left hook that's coming towards you, and yeah, he's just a really good striker. He fights against Khalil Rountree. The point that I was trying to make is that Twitter, I saw a take on Twitter, and Twitter. Oh, I saw a take on Twitter, and the guy said something like, Alex Pereira has never fought a striker like Khalil Rountree before. Khalil Rountree goes out there and he tries to fight to take your head off. Is that not what everyone that Alex Pereira has fought? Would you not say that Jan Blachowicz tries to do that? Would you not say that Yuri Prochazka tries to do that? I could go right now to Glory Kickboxing. Would you like have Israel Adesanya? Israel Adesanya doesn't try to do that. Like, would you say like my guy Artem Beketov doesn't do that? You would say even like Jason Wilness doesn't do that. Cesar Almeida doesn't do that. Who else can I kind of look at that I know is just like an absolute savage? I mean, Jason Wilness, man. Like, do these guys not do this? Do these guys not try and take your head off? Like, I just don't think that Khalil Rountree can really bring something to Alex Pereira that he hasn't seen before. Yes, he has a Muay Thai striking style, but what he does is, simply put, he just has his hands very high up, and he does pressure forward a lot. That's what he's really good at, and he does land with a lot of power. But in similar stylistic matchups that we've seen before against Dustin Jacoby, I thought he lost the matchup against Dustin Jacoby, even though I was the one that was saying he does have a good chance to call it, to have gotten the decision. He pushes forward a lot, and I think that Alex Pereira will be the fighter fighting backwards, even though I have said that a couple of times now, and he's been the one moving forwards. He was the one moving forwards against Yuri Prochazka recently, which I found interesting, and especially he was the one that was really moving forwards against Jamal Hill, which I also found interesting because I thought Hill was going to be the one to pressure forward and moving backwards. Speaking of takedowns, Khalil Rountree's never attempted a takedown at the UFC level. Do I think that against Alex Pereira it would be wise to try? Yes, but the thing is, I don't know if his takedown offense is that good. Is Khalil Rountree's apologies takedown offense as good as Jan Blahovich's? I'm gonna say no, because we've never seen it. It's hard to tell. Khalil Rountree as well isn't going to have the reach advantage here. He might even look small in there against Alex Pereira because Pereira is just a giant of a man at 6'4". Rountree is 6'1", but he's very well built. I just don't see Khalil Rountree being able to just close the distance against Pereira and knock him out, but I could see it happening. That's the thing. And I feel like as well, if Khalil Rountree beat Alex Pereira, I don't think the UFC would mind all that much because they've got another Ultimate Fighter champion that they can kind of tell all the contestants on the Ultimate Fighter. 8 champions have come from the Ultimate Fighter, this and that. Khalil Rountree, I mean, they might even just do like a Khalil Rountree versus Pereira rematch, Ultimate Fighter, if he was to win. But yeah, the pick is Pereira. I do have high confidence in Pereira. It's a striker versus striker matchup, and I'm going to take Pereira like probably like 99% of the time. Unless he does fight my GOAT, Artem Beketov. No, just kidding. But Artem Beketov, hey, he's fighting on week 9 of the Contender Series. I'm telling you guys, me and him, I would interview him, but he doesn't speak English. But I have been talking to him on Instagram, but I'm pretty confident he's using Google Translate to talk to me. Anyway, doesn't matter. I think that Alex Pereira does win. I do think he beats Khalil Rountree. Very, very sneaky idea is if the fight gets extended, which I don't think it will. Alex Pereira might shoot a takedown. Like, he shot takedowns against Israel Adesanya. I think there's a very real chance. And Khalil Rountree won't expect it either, which will probably be why he could get takedowns if he really, really needed to. I wouldn't be that surprised if that happened. But I do think Pereira goes out there and I think he wins by KO. -500. At this level of the UFC, it's pretty hard to really justify a line like that, especially when Khalil Rountree could knock him out. Like, that's the thing, but I don't think it happens, guys. I know I probably just waffled 5 minutes about this fight, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that wasn't a bad prediction video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Week number 9. Don't miss it. Artem Beketov, my GOAT, fights on the Contender Series next week on week number 9. Here it is. Artem Beketov, do not miss this man. Do not miss it. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.